In this episode of The Inner Practice, we explore how yoga can transform an athletic mindset of pushing through at all costs to one of peace, contentment, and acceptance. Welcome to The Inner Practice, the podcast where we explore the powerful connections between yoga, mindfulness, and the human stories behind healing. I'm your host, Jackie Vandertoon, and today's guest has one of those stories that starts in a place of resistance and ends in transformation. Megan Pomarensky jokes that her doctor might have tricked her into trying yoga, but after 2 hip surgeries, chronic pain, and a loss of identity after leading dance, yoga became so much more than rehab. It became a path back to herself. In our conversation, we'll talk about the surprising way yoga showed up in Megan's life, how it shifted her relationship with movement and pain, and why empowerment for herself and her clients has become the heart of her work. Megan, welcome. I am so excited that you're here. As you've known or heard many times, I think you are my soul sister, but that's because you and I see things on so many levels. So full disclosure, Megan is an athletic therapist as well as a yoga instructor, and her and I have lots of commonalities with regards to how we treat people, how we believe in more of the inner healing type thing, but we will eventually get into that, I'm sure. So, Megan, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and chatting and for your podcast.
Thank you so much. So, Megan, you started your background in dance. Can you share with us a little bit about your dance background?
Yeah, dance was pretty much all I knew growing up through like elementary school, middle school, high school. I had floated around between, trying the soccer team or baseball or volleyball. And I was always drawn back to the art side of things and pretty quickly committed, went all in on that and went through a bunch of different styles until I landed in the ballet and lyrical world, and then competing and ballet exams and all of that, up until I was 18 when I had my medical retirement.
That's pretty tough. So you weren't, I don't want to say just a dancer, but you were at a high functioning, high level kind of dance.
I was, and it was my identity at the time. In looking back, absolutely it was. I would have said, I'm a dancer, and that's it.
So if we said, hey, Megan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Your response would have been,
I like to dance. I'm a dancer. All I do is dance. That's my hobby. Whether the formal classes or dancing in the backyard at home and like making dances up in my living room and making my friends or family watch me do them and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. That was my single hobby.
And you're also in Winnipeg. So Megan, did the National Ballet have any thoughts in there as well for you?
It did a little bit. I took some classes at Royal Winnipeg Ballet here and there, and I was more into the smaller private studio from the community aspect of it and having the variety, because I did enjoy the different styles of movement, as opposed to doing solely just ballet and then maybe like one jazz class a week. I really valued the variety and in the athleticism and all of the different styles. So I would take like workshops and stuff there, and it was definitely a inspiration that you can do this for life and as a career.
Had that thought of a career in dance actually crossed your mind?
It did at a very far off level, like, oh, that'd be cool, but I didn't think it honestly was realistic for me, just in terms of some of the body type aesthetics, that side of dance as well. So it was, I think for me it was one of those, it'd be cool if it happens, and also don't get your hopes up.
But it was your passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So then comes the hip.
Yeah.
Are you okay to share with us a little bit about your hip?
Yeah, definitely. I would have been 17, I think. I think I was still in high school. and was training for a ballet exam and probably in the studio 10, 12 hours a week, and was learning this turn sequence that I had to be able to do. And like, I remember the exact moment of it's a pirouette, but with your leg out in front and like whipping around to help get you that momentum to do them repeatedly. And I remember like my hip going out to 45 degrees to the side and feeling a pop and being like, oh, that didn't feel good. But I was okay. Like, kind of shake it out, walk it off. Don't let people see that you're hurt kind of mentality of the world, because I didn't want to lose my spot in the exam or the show or whatever it was that was coming out, and tried to work through it as best I could, and then realized I couldn't. And it was just progressively getting worse, and saw an athletic therapist, saw a chiropractor, saw physiotherapists. Everyone was kind of like, something's not right, but we can't really figure out what's going on. My sports doctor at the time went through probably 3 or 4 MRIs, if I remember correctly, that all showed nothing out of the norm for what you would expect in an athletic person's hip. But I was still in a lot of pain, so I was given pain medications and, do what you can tolerate. There's no real risk here from what we can see. So I tried, did what I could, finished out the season, and I think mentally it was wearing on me more than physically at that point. So decided it was in my best interest to stop. At the time, I thought it might have just been short term. And then was really deep in the rehab world and starting university, and ended up one of the athletic therapists at the University of Winnipeg was at a conference in Ontario, and there was a hip surgeon speaking there, and he specialized in like young adult hip pathologies. And after he'd been treating me for a long time, and told me, he was just sitting there being like, this sounds like Megan, for some of the things that he was describing. So we ended up getting my images sent out to him, and realized there was stuff going on in my hip that he could help. So had my first surgery, and it went well for a little bit until it didn't again. And again, I think we all did the best we could at the time with what we knew. Like, no one in Winnipeg was doing hip scopes at that time, or like really, my rehab guidelines were no sports for 6 weeks. Like that was on the sheet of paper that I got after surgery. It was like, here's some Advil, here's some Tylenol. You can start riding a bike tonight for range of motion, and then no sports for 6 weeks.
And this is what's being told to a 19-year-old active individual.
Yeah.
Megan, that must have been crushing.
It was, and it was so confusing, especially because I was coming into my second year of university, or third year. So I had this like anatomical understanding, physiological understanding. I had gone through like my strength training courses at the university, and was like, wait a second, there seems to be a gap here. And thankfully my team over here was amazing, and we definitely did the best we could. And despite that, I developed a hip flexion contracture and a bunch of scar tissue, and essentially he described it like a frozen hip, like instead of a frozen shoulder. So I had a second surgery that, again, mentally was harder more than physically, just timing wise in life, because at this point I'm like, okay, I'm probably not going to dance ever again. I don't really know what else to do. I switched my identity from being a dancer to, and I'm going to be an athletic therapist soon. But what if I can't do my job because I need to be able to run across a football field or stabilize a C-spine for 20 minutes on my hands and knees, or this or whatever? So we pushed off surgery till I could finish school at least. And same thing, I was on pain meds. I was getting cortisone injections just to get through and do what I had to do to, at the time, I thought it needed to just be finish school and get things done. And then I the day I actually got my athletic therapy exam results was I got the email when I woke up from surgery. I remember like that was how it ended up all timing out.
That's fantastic. Welcome to being an athletic therapist. Where do I sign up to see an athletic therapist?
Yeah, exactly. And then it was kind of the same thing again, jump back into some rehab. And that's where I realized there was way more to it than what was physically going on, because on paper, things should have been amazing and healed and perfect and strong and this, and the opposite felt like it was happening.
Megan, I'm hearing an athlete mindset come through. Am I far off? And you and I think, know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean with regards to that. Can you describe your mindset that you're going to? Because I'm hearing lots of push through and strength and surgery and all those physical things. Can you tell us a little bit more about those mental kind of things that you're experiencing, emotional things?
Yeah, I think it was a way that people were trying to reassure me that I was okay, because yeah, the MRI was clear. Like my surgeon showed me the pictures like from my hip scope and what was repaired, and like, look, it's all sutured up. Your bone's nice and smooth now. The cartilage isn't peeling up. And I took that to mean that's all that matters. So that picture is good. I got the check mark. Let's go. And I love structure and organization. So now let's just go through this checklist of this level exercise, progress, progress, progress. And when I couldn't, in hindsight, I think it turned into some of that guilt, shame, like, what am I doing wrong? What am I missing? And everyone just always coming back to, well, your surgery worked. And then I took on that identity of like, okay, I guess I'm wrong and they're right. So let's just go. And then I probably made it about 5-6 months in that mindset before I crashed and burned. And then it was the anxiety and sadness and grief and all of that other stuff bubbling up.
You're making my heart hurt. And I say that, and again, I'm
Mm,
preaching to you, but I'm saying this to our
yeah.
listeners as well, as you and I both know that healing is more than physical.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I hear stories like that, it makes me so sad knowing that you're one of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that blame themselves because their body
Mm-hmm.
is not conforming to what we consider normal, even
Yeah.
though everybody's body is different. So,
Yeah.
and oftentimes, Megan and I'll talk about this. Megan is really an expert in this, is that um, all of these emotions, well, maybe you can share us, how did those
Mm,
emotions impact your healing? I mean, you can talk about this from patient Megan and
yeah.
researcher Megan.
From patient Megan's perspective, it was diminishing trust in myself and everything, because I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. Like I was trying the exercises, I was doing the heat and the ice and the all the modalities, and I was in rehab 2-3 times a week, and I got to the point where like I was discharged and then being like, hey, like you can do this in the gym and just keep getting stronger and go, go, go. And then the pain kept coming back, and I started to feel embarrassed that I was showing up to the doctor's office or calling my AT and being like, I don't know what's going on. This hurts and I can't do it. And then I started getting scared that I was going to either hurt myself again or mess up the surgery. Of like, oh, I'm going to like, he told me he fixed it so great and it was good, but something hurts, therefore something is wrong. And I'm going to mess this surgery up that I just gone through twice. And my mom flew with me to Ontario to get this done. And it was a whole big thing. And like, what am I missing and what am I doing wrong? And then that trickled into just me being scared to do pretty much anything. Like I was scared to do exercises that involved kneeling or balance, because what if I fall? What if I squat too low and then pinch the labrum again because my pelvis tucks under and there's nobody watching me to monitor my form and do this and that. And then I was really fortunate to meet a physiotherapist through my last little bit of school and internship, and I was working with him as a student AT. And then I finally let those worlds collide, because I tried to hide it, I think, a little bit too, because, okay, if I can't help myself, how's this dude going to let me help his patients? But I finally let those worlds collide a little bit. And I remember him asking me to do an exercise in a kneeling position. I'm just like pulling a cable to do something for my upper body and core, to not even worry about my hip. And it was just like sheer panic. And he describes it as like me being in a deer in headlights and just like shaking. And I think it triggered something in my head of like, this feels too familiar to balance, dance, who knows what. And then I remember us walking into his office and sitting down, and him sitting there for a couple minutes, and then finally just saying like, hey, have you talked about dance? Have you talked about what happened with surgery? Like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And walked out of his office. And then I remember going to my sports doctor and telling him what happened, and same thing. And he was like, how are you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. And he's like, no, you're not. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And he just kept saying like, how are you? And then I finally was like, okay, I think I'm not okay. And I remember it being very much like a question of like, can I say this? Is there something wrong? Is there not? And then that's what led into approaching rehab and training from the psychosocial side of things, of fears and my beliefs about what was wrong or right with my hip and my identity and all of that.
Kudos to your therapist and your doctor. They are, I'm so glad that they recognize that, and they force the whole, hey, how are you? Not just the rote recall of I'm fine, like really, probing deeper.
Yeah.
So is this a doctor that suggested yoga?
Yes, it was down the road. It took us a little bit to get there. He was always very adamant that I find something that I enjoyed doing, and it didn't have to be at this point in my healing like a specific exercise. He was very much like, what do you want to do? Find an entry point, and then like, let's progress and do that. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was never into the gym at that point in my life. I had never really like weightlifted or strength trained or anything. I was working in that setting, but I never personally did it. I knew I wasn't like into running, and I wasn't into like any other thing. And he had always said like, do you want to dance again? And I, at that point, emotionally wasn't there yet. So he had suggested yoga. He's like, have you ever thought about trying yoga? And I was like, I've heard of it. I think I've done it in, some classes here and there at the park and stuff, but I did not like the idea of it at all. I went and looked up some stuff online, I think, and thought that it was too slow and too quiet. I think were my biggest barriers.
The athletic mindset, I feel like, is coming through.
Yeah.
Who is this doctor? Because I feel like I want to give him a shout out, because he's my soul brother now.
Neil Creighton, Legacy Sport Medicine.
Wow. Oh my gosh. You lucked out. The universe was listening to your needs. That is amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you really kind of looked at yoga as like, okay, but not, I need that hard workout, that hard kind of training. Is that kind of how your perception was?
Yeah, I didn't see how it was going to match a goal. I think looking back, it's probably because I didn't actually have a clear goal. But at the time, I didn't see how that was going to help me get back to regular life or work, or be able to, if I have to teach a client how to deadlift and squat, how's yoga going to help get me there? And at that stage too, I think I was very apprehensive still about acknowledging the anxiety around exercise and movement. And I was very much looking for distractions all the time and being busy or having 3 things on the go so I didn't have to think or sit with myself and my feelings about it. And I think that was also a reason for me to not do yoga, because I was like, now I have to go sit in a room for an hour, because it's not like there's 20-minute classes. If I go sit, like there is online, but not a chance I was doing that in my own living room. And if I go to a class somewhere, then it's automatically an hour. And I was like, that sounds terrible. Like, I'm gonna have to sit there and be with my thoughts of I can't do this or I can do this, and then I'm gonna get mad. And so I resisted it for a very, very long time. And I think it came back to partly the physio experience too, of him just trying to teach me how to chill out and breathe. Because I was like always shallow chest breathing and just like hyped and amped all the time. And then I would go have these check-ins with him and he'd be like, cool, like, let's just lay down, put your legs up and just like breathe for 10 minutes. And I was like, I feel like I'm dying. Like I couldn't even take a deep breath. And he was like, are you breathing? What's going on? And because it was just like this like minimal shallow thing. And then I was like, oh, what does it feel like to be relaxed? Like, I don't even know what that is anymore.
Okay, shout out to the physio.
Yeah.
Who's the physio? Give this physio a shout out.
Yeah, his name's Jamie Robertson.
Because you came in for a hip. You came in for a hip problem. Yeah, and they're making you breathe. They're helping you breathe.
I was like, I need to learn how to squat and I want to get stronger and I want to do this. And it's like, cool, let's take 10 deep breaths. Okay, this is weird. I don't like this. And then we did go down that path a little bit. And then there was a third like tipping point for me where I finally got the hint, because I was kind of listening to the doctor and the physio, but I think I didn't want to admit it still. And I was at a continuing education course with Craig Liebenson. And he had everybody out on the gym floor going through some different exercises and movement screens and ways to find an entry point for people. And there's probably 60 of us, 60 to 70 people there. And he was like, okay, so something about we're doing bird dogs on the turf. So all four is reaching arm and leg out. And I was like, oh yeah, that's easy. I can do that. Got down on the floor, started to do it. And then it was the same thing. It just like hit me. I was sweating and like heart started racing. And again, that deer in headlights. And I remember this was at the gym that I worked at. We were hosting it. And I remember just running out the back of the gym area and going into my treatment room office and just like laying on the floor, because it was like a cold tile. And I was just like hot and sweating. And I was just like, I need to just like cool off or something. And I laid there for like, I don't even know, 5-10 minutes and like realized, hey, breathing is working.
So like, can I just ask if that was that a physical response or was that a psychosomatic response? Like, were you panicking or were you like, this is actually harder than I expected it to be?
It was harder than I expected it. So psychosomatic response. It wasn't physically hard, like in terms of I'm going to damage like I was capable of doing it. I just hadn't put myself in that position to realize that I could do it before. And I think it was some of just the anticipation of like, there's a group of people around and like, what if I can't do the most advanced version of this? Even though, I don't know, I might have in hindsight, but it was definitely a psychosomatic response of just like, this is more challenging than I thought it was going to be for what should have been. Because again, everyone else's definitions instead of my own should have been easy, and it wasn't. And I was at that point probably about 6 or 7 months post-op. So again, I should have been back to sports in real life, right? Because that was only 6 weeks.
Right.
So it was definitely that psychosomatic response and just panic attack, essentially.
Right.
And then realizing like, oh, that didn't feel safe. And then that moment passed. And then later, Craig worked with me, and within 20 minutes, like no joke, I have videos of this too. I went from not being able to that and crying to doing a modified single leg deadlift which I hadn't done in probably 3 years.
That's
Because
fantastic.
he addressed my fears and beliefs and reassured me. And third time was the charm, I think. So
You truly are so lucky to have a great healthcare team. Like,
it's been incredible. I'm so, so grateful. And my heart goes out to people who have not been able to get those opportunities, because I'm living proof. Sometimes the first time you hear it, like, you have to be ready. And I was not physically, I was ready, I think, those first few times. But emotionally I wasn't. And then finally those happened to line up at the same time. And then my amazing physio was at that same course with me, so he was able to help me through all of that. And then with Craig's incredible support, we continued to work through. And then it clicked for me, like, oh, this isn't a torn labrum or hip cartilage tear. Like, it finally, I got on board with that idea, and then was able to open up more with my therapist and try the yoga class. And then I fell in love with it.
so you spoke to me about how you went all in.
Yeah.
4 to 5 hot yoga classes a week.
Yeah.
Why?
At that point, in that timeline that I just went through, that was when I started. I was like, okay, I think I get where yoga can be helpful. And I was more open-minded. There was a hot yoga studio literally across the back lane from where I was working. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll go there after work one day, and did a class. And then it was a very slow-paced class. Like, I think there was maybe 8 or 10 postures the entire class. And I realized it wasn't terrible. And I was like, oh, I did it. Like, that was okay. And then I liked the way it felt. And I think the heat helped in that context too, because I felt like a little bit more of a traditional workout of, like, the athlete mindset of, like, oh, I sweat, so therefore I worked out harder. Even though I didn't, I actually relaxed more than I ever had in my entire life, I think. And then I went back the next day, and then just went back the next day, and then signed up for an unlimited membership at that studio. And I was going, at least 4 times a week, if not more. And it was a variety of classes, from yin to hatha to vinyasa ones. And I think it tricked me in a way, even from the physical side of things, because tree pose felt very different than a deadlift, or toppling tree versus deadlift, or doing a sun salutation felt so different than doing a plank.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what do you mean by felt different?
Psychologically, it felt different for me. Like, I think I was scared to do a lot of exercise and weight train. And because of that experience I had in that kneeling position, I think I was scared to lunge. So if someone told me to do lunges, I would automatically, like, tense up. Or if I had to do a glute bridge, I was just always tense going through it, because I was thinking about technique and form and what could go wrong, and am I feeling the right muscle in this exercise, that I was so in my head. And the point of yoga, without even realizing, going through some of those other postures, it didn't connect the same way in my brain, that going into warrior was kind of a lunge. But because I was so focused on, like, lengthening through my spine and the breath, and, like, having to think about other alignment things, I didn't realize until I was, like, in the lunge, that I was like, oh, that actually feels okay. And then
So it helped you with that panic, that sense of anxiety, that, okay, 3 sets of 10 lunges. You drop that mindset, and now I'm just going to do, moving and breathing warrior 2 to revolved warrior. Or that's amazing. That's amazing.
I think the environment helped a lot too, because it was a class. Those people knew nothing about me. I didn't know anything about them. It was literally just, here I am in this, like, obviously I told them I had and it was coming off of an injury and stuff, but it wasn't overanalyzed the same way it tends to be in exercise settings. And it was very much framed as, okay, let me know what you need from me, listen to your body. And I was like, oh, I get to make that decision? That's new.
Right.
And then it was just kind of that, like, slowly taking, I guess, like a step further and further and further, and like, okay, I can trust myself and know that this is a good sensation that is uncomfortable, but it's safe and it's good.
And like you said, you had that permission to be, if today's not the day, I'm just going to hang out in child's pose, or maybe I'm not going to go as deep, or maybe
Yeah.
I'm going to move differently
Yeah.
in a way that feels good for me, instead of the, you must do 3 sets of 10 walking lunges or something like that.
Yeah, it was very freeing to have that space to explore. And then that's when I'd probably been, again, a few months of that. I was like, I want to learn more about this. And then went and did a yoga teacher training.
So let's talk a little bit. One of the things I'm kind of curious about as well, because Shavasana for many, I find, for me, is probably the hardest pose. How did you go? Like, what did you think of moving from that athlete mindset of moving and competing and being strong to, we're just going to hang out here and be in a space for however long at the end of a practice? How did you deal with that?
I was very restless at first, and I was the person always like peeking an eye open and like, is everybody moving? Because we've definitely been here for, if they said it was 2 minutes, it would be like 20 seconds. And I'm like, that was 5 minutes. Like, that was long. And then I think I just realized by being around other people too, and like feeling that, and like everybody else around me is relaxed. Like, I'm clearly the only one in my little bubble who's like fired up and agitated. So like, if they're okay, maybe I can be too. And it was really interesting to see people not rush and just enjoy it. And then, because at first too, the class would end and I would have been the first one up and out. And I'm like, whoa, people are like, they want to stay here longer. That, like, what's that like to just feel that like peace in your mind and body to be able to do that? And it was like a gradual exposure thing, whereas like, okay, I'll stay here for 5 breaths and then 6, and then the next time maybe it'll be 10. And the music and guidance helped a lot too with the breath counting and just the instruction of it, and just the support, I guess, is the best way to say it. That's what helped me feel comfortable in it.
How did this translate to off the mat? Because you're still kind of young at this stage. I mean, young, relatively speaking.
Yeah, I'm 35 now. At that time, I would have been 25-ish, maybe, not even. And I was at the stage of life there where I was like, I got to work 12 hours a day and I have to work harder and volunteer my time and do 17 different things all at once. And I was using yoga as a reward for that. Like, oh, I did all this, so now I can relax on Sunday and go to yoga class. Or I worked my 10-hour day, so now I can go do that. And then it started to shift to be like, well, I want to feel that more. Like that feeling of Shavasana or child's pose or warrior, whatever it was. Like I finally started to like that feeling. So I was like, okay, how can I bring that into other aspects of life? And it did help me slow down and learn to give myself some more grace. And there were moments of it too where it translated from being uncomfortable is a good thing, or that little bit of discomfort. Because if I wanted to progress in some different yoga postures, I had to do something that I had never done before. And it was that repeated little bits of success over and over and over. And I started to realize that that's a transferable skill. So maybe I can use that in other aspects of life and be okay in the gym again, be okay in the work setting where things felt physically uncomfortable or emotionally uncomfortable, but I had tools now to help navigate through that. And it also, I think, gave me permission to ask for help in a different way. One of the things that I really loved about the yoga practice that I was in was that props were encouraged. It was always framed as, this is what we're doing. If you want more, here's another option, but it was never, we're going to start here. And if you can't do that, then you're going to regress. So I think it reinforced that good enough mentality for me in a good way of like, what I'm doing is enough. And that's okay. If it's not the most peak pose, full wheel, whatever. And that was really, really reassuring for me. And then, okay, if I can use a prop in yoga, and I never thought twice about it. Like, cool, yeah, give me the prop so I can do half moon and then feel good. Why can't I do that in the gym and squat with a box to limit my depth? Like, those are the exact same things, but I was judging myself in the gym, or I was judging myself even when I was doing my job with clients of, if I was showing them something and I had to like use a TRX to help me show them, before I was framing that as a negative. And then I was like, no, that's actually amazing and helpful. So it was so freeing for that.
That's amazing, Megan. That is, I'm so glad that you were able to
Yeah.
come to that. And you know, I'm older, but to come to it that young age was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So you decided to do your yoga teacher training. Why? What was the point of you doing that yoga teacher training?
It was twofold. Part of it was because I became so intrigued by what I was learning from the physical standpoint of the practice and also the mental emotional side of it, when people were talking about like shavasana being almost like the intro to meditation, or talking about chakras and the emotional centers in the body. I was intrigued by it, so I wanted to learn, because I've historically always been that like forever student of, I really like to learn things. And then with how much it changed my life, even if I wasn't going to teach yoga like in a studio or anything like that, I wanted that understanding and skill set to be able to recognize in my own clients, to give them more options, whether it's with me or I need to, refer them out or something. I thought yoga was going to fill a really good gap for me, which it did.
That's fantastic. Did you have any inclination that you were doing it to teach at all, or it was just simply to dive deeper into the practice?
It was to dive deeper into my practice and use within the athletic therapy bubble. I didn't have any inclination of, I'm going to go teach classes and do this. I ended up doing that at the gym that I was working at, and some private stuff here and there. But I really found the most value in it for me at that time was to help my clients, because I was attracting now clients who were all experiencing chronic pain, and not the traditional ankle sprain, ACL rehab, or any of that kind of stuff. It was the 10 years of back pain. And I was starting to see in them little like glimmers. I was like, hey, I recognize that look on your face, because I think that was my own. Or I'd hear like keywords that people were saying, and I was like, I remember when I said that. So I was looking at it as like a tool to integrate within athletic therapy, to be able to create a window of opportunity for people to see it and feel it, because I knew what it was like also to be told to go do it. And that it is a big jump sometimes, I think, to go from doing nothing to like, let's go to an hour of yoga. And I wanted to try to create some sort of stepping stone to that.
How did yoga actually manage your chronic pain? Or I shouldn't say manage, help, I should say.
Yeah, it helped from the physical side of it in terms of flexibility, mobility, confidence, and all of that. And it helped me also learn some regulation skills that like if I can control my breath, I can be in this a little bit longer, and it most of the time is going to feel better once I like let the guard down a little bit. So it helped my pain because then I could deepen the stretch, deepen the practice, and also just like let go and stop being so tense, because I think I was probably walking around with everything clenched because I was scared. And then I normalized that and like being guarded and stiff. So then I was like, oh, okay, I know how to relax. Like it sounds so simple, but like I know how to relax.
So you've really allowed yoga to impact you from a personal level, but also from a professional level as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just because I know who you are, um, you are almost a competitive yoga person as well, which I find,
Yeah.
again, you're my soul sister, so that was me too.
Yeah.
But kind of, was there a switch where you went from doing, full wheels to, you know what, I'm just going to do a bridge and that's okay?
Yeah, I think the first part was competitive because I was seeing a lot of progress, and then realizing like, oh, I can do more. I'd see other people doing things, and just being like the novelty of it in some ways pushed me to do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then I realized there were a couple times when I would go to a class and I wasn't feeling great. Like I was probably going in at like a 30%. I was like just going to show up anyways to keep my routine and do that. And then I would do bridge. And sometimes I just laid there for 20 minutes, and it just felt like such a safe place to be able to do that. Where if I was at a different facility, a different class, different anything, there's always so much hype to just push and do more. And this was so laid back, maybe is the word. And then I realized how good that actually felt. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do more of that. Like, why not? Like, what am I trying to win here? Like, there's no gold star for like doing the best pose. That's not actually the point of yoga. And once I turned it more from fitness into a mindfulness practice and appreciated spirituality more in my life in general, then the flip happened.
Yeah, I think that's so smart because we often think, that athlete mindset, I have to go at 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So giving yourself that permission to be like, you know what, today's a 30% day, and that's okay. Tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
might be an 80% day, and the day after might be a 20% day or a 100% day. But today I'm going to take it what I've got and what I've got in my body to give right now, and I'm going to honor that. So
Yeah.
I absolutely love this.
Thank you.
So Megan, you're a certified athletic therapist with a very successful clinical practice.
Thank you.
Can you share how you as a therapist approach chronic pain now with your patients? Because I think you're a little different
Mm-hmm.
than, you know, th- the therapist down the road, for example.
Yeah, I like to think that too. I think the biggest difference for me is the zoomed out approach now, and looking at people as a human instead of a injured body part, and understanding how all of our body systems and the biology and the psychology and the environment around us shapes who we are. Because I lived that for so long. That's been the focus of my practice, is showing people how those layers do intertwine and how they can choose to navigate it if they want to, and recognize when to slow down, when to ramp up, and what safety and trust feel like in their bodies again, as being the biggest outcome measure or goal from the therapy sessions.
What an amazing gift you're giving your patients. You know, not the whole, you need to obtain 130 degrees of knee flexion in 4 weeks versus, you know what, how about you listen to your body? And maybe you'll obtain it earlier or maybe you'll obtain it later. But how
Hmm.
about you just listen to yourself and not get frustrated because you don't fall within, I'm air quoting, the normal range of motion.
Hmm.
Um, you know, when I say Megan's the expert in a certain area, Megan has a passion for understanding people from a biopsychosocial response or a biopsychosocial lens. Can you talk just a little bit about that? I know it's a big word, but
Hmm.
um, I think it's really important that we let listeners know that you're not just a physical person.
Yeah. You have a physical body and you're a soul and a mind and body living in it. And in whether or not you're injured or experiencing pain, the tissue biology makes up one part of us, the psychology makes up another part, and the environment, whether that's people, places, things, music, what you're feeding into your body, like all of those things play a role in any output that's going to come from our body. And the interplay between them is always going to be there. The ratio is going to shift up and down, and sometimes it's going to be more of a biology thing, sometimes it's going to be more of a psychology thing, and sometimes it's going to be more of a spiritual or environmental thing. And if we have that understanding and awareness, we're going to be able to respond better to whatever comes our way. Because at the end of the day, I think our bodies don't know the difference between types of stress. Like stress is stress. So we can't expect to fix something because we're not broken.
Thank you for saying that, by the way. We're not broken. We're not
We're
broken.
not,
Listener, you are not broken.
no, you're so whole as it is. And recognizing those other parts is what allows everything to come together to reach that goal that we want. And the purely biomedical or biological approach is appropriate, I think, in like 2% of situations. Like that's a made up stat, but it's also very accurate.
Absolutely.
It's just we're so much more than that. And I think if you ask any therapist, physio, AT, chiro, whoever, like what percentage of people match every single thing in the checklist and the textbook and the flow chart, they're gonna say minimal. And like I remember having clients come to see me when I was so like 2 months certified, and this guy had a herniated disc in his back and he literally could not stand up straight. Like he was stuck in flexion, like almost parallel to the ground. And I was like, cool, like let's lay on your back because I need to check your reflexes. And he's like, I can't. And then I remember just being like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is not going to work. And if I was stuck in that biological only mindset, like, I would have been screwed, for lack of a better word. And it's like, you have to be able to shape and understand, like, this is not appropriate for this time. We can still be safe and effective and address things from a completely different perspective.
I love it. Megan, your patients, once again, I know I've already said this, your patients are really lucky.
Thank you.
Megan, your clinic
Mm-hmm.
treatment area, you've
Mm-hmm.
called it empowerment. And I love that name. I'm getting a sense of where it's coming from. But tell me a little bit more about empowerment. Where did the name come from?
Yeah. The name for that's the umbrella name for everything I do business wise, whether that's athletic therapy or yoga, mobility training, meditations, any of it. And it came from the desire to show people that they are absolutely capable of helping themselves. And I'm here as a guide and to help facilitate. And I consider success with a client to be that I've shown them or given them the opportunities and the tools to be able to help themselves, because I personally didn't enjoy the feeling of feeling helpless and like feeling like I needed to be on a treatment table 2 or 3 times a week and needing somebody to adjust my back before I was allowed to go exercise, or like I needed somebody to tell me it was safe for me to ride the bike that day. I did not enjoy that feeling at all. So the empowerment side of it is knowing that you have the skills and knowledge of your own body and of what's risky versus not for you to do on your own. So that's what I want to teach everybody and have the goal of the session be. And if I did that, then I consider it a successful session or treatment plan.
I remember when I was a 16-year-old kid in my first goal at therapy, and I had surgery on my knees, and I was put behind a curtain, and I was doing open kinetic knee extension. So I'm laying on a table, my leg is over a bolster, and I'm just sitting there doing this with some muscle stim. I had no idea why I was doing this, and nobody even came in and checked up on me. And I was really discouraged because I was playing competitive sport, and I just went and did my own thing. And, I wish I had someone like you who could have helped me through understanding what was going on, but also listen to me as well as a kid, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that, always asking permission, can I do this? Can I do this? And totally not even listening to my body, just looking at someone else as the expert when really I'm the expert of my body, much like you're the expert of your body.
Yeah.
So thank you for being the person you are. And I don't know any of your patients, but I know that they're very thankful for you.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny. I think as a therapist, if all I do is ask questions, I'm going to get all the information that I need. Like I don't have to tell anybody anything. If I can just frame something back to them in the sense of, well, what did you feel? What changed? And not like trying to force them into like saying something felt good or bad, but just, like what's different? Then they realize, oh, I did feel better when I did that. Okay, cool. Let's do more of that. Or, that didn't feel great. Okay, so maybe we need to adjust or scale back and look at volume intensity. Were you stressed going into this? Were you not sleeping well? Were you all of those other psychosocial things that were maybe the reason for that? And then people will learn that they do have that inherent knowledge inside. They just have to be given the opportunity to express it.
Megan, for someone listening who feels stuck after an injury or surgery, what's one step that they could take moving forward to get moving again, to feel unstuck?
I would first take that 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour or whatever it is and take a few deep breaths and then write down what you're currently experiencing, what you want to be experiencing, and seeing if there's a gap. And then taking that gap to, if you have a current therapist already, have the conversation with them about how can I close that gap, bridge that gap, and go from there. But get really clear on what you're currently experiencing and where you want to go, not where everybody else told you to go.
I think that should be underlined and bolded. What you just said is going back to what the person wants. What are their goals? What are their dreams? Not what the therapist wants, not what your doctor wants, not what your husband or your significant other wants. What do you want out of life, out of recovery?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So please,
Yeah.
I'm reiterating, Megan, take the time, the 5, the 10 minutes, whatever, and just write down what are your goals, and then take that to your healthcare practitioner. So, Megan, looking back, do you think your doctor really did trick you into trying yoga, or was it something the universe was going to bring to you anyways?
I think the universe was going to get me there, absolutely, in a different way. I think he had an amazing, incredible approach to frame it as, oh, it's exercise and dance related-ish to, get me to slow down and consider it, because I was closed-minded. So trick is a harsh word that I use, and I'm the one who says it. But it was definitely it held up a mirror for me to either be okay with where I was or not, and then decide to make that change. And I think if it wasn't him, I probably would have got there eventually. Maybe in 10 years from now, though, who knows?
What's one lesson from your yoga journey that continues to guide you today?
That it's okay to ask for help.
And I think that if I'm putting words in your mouth in any area, and that's one of the reasons why I do this podcast, because you are not alone. And asking for help is the first step in your journey.
Yeah.
Right. And there is someone out there who has experienced what you have. Yeah. So I'm so glad that you've said that is, reach out for help.
Yeah.
Megan, I could talk to you forever. And I probably will knock on your door again. But can you
please do?
If someone wants to find you, I've included in the show notes your website and your Instagram and your Twitter feed. I've also included the article that Megan has published, for me, a very a prestigious journal for Megan and I, the Journal of Athletic Training, Management of Chronic Musculoskeletal Pain Through a Biopsychosocial Lens. Please read it. I've included the PMID that you can just click on and have access to it. It's an open access journal. So, Megan, where else can people find you?
People can find me in Winnipeg, empowerment, rehab, and training. I run athletic therapy sessions, fitness stuff, mobility, meditations, all that fun stuff here. And those are the best places online to find me that you said.
Megan, I thank you once again. And I hope you're okay with me knocking on your door, your metaphorical door, and continuing on with this conversation, because I just looked at the time and I'm like, we need, and I'm not joking when I say we need at least another hour. So stay tuned if you're okay with that.
Anytime.
Thank you for joining me in this inspiring conversation with Megan Pomarensky. Her journey is such a powerful reminder that healing isn't always linear, and sometimes the thing we resist most can become the thing we need the most. If you'd like to connect with Megan or learn more about her work, you'll find the links in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this episode of The Inner Practice, please follow the podcast, share it with someone who might need a little hope today, or support the show on Buy Me a Coffee. Your support helps me to keep sharing these important stories. Until next time, keep listening to your body, stay curious, and keep practicing from the inside out.